Now, I just got back from about a month-long stay traveling all over different parts of Bali, Indonesia, and I'm really here to give you the rundown on everything that you might need to know if you're visiting this island. Hello friends, my name is Larissa and welcome to my channel. Quaint is not exactly a word I would use to describe Bali. Some of the more popular cities like Ubud and Canggu/Seminyak are hustly and bustling cities where there is a large population of expats as well as a large population of locals. Well, there are two seasons in Bali. There's rainy season and there's dry season. Rainy season typically runs from about November all the way through to April, and dry season is from May through to October-ish time. Dry season in Bali is typically extremely crowded. I was able to go in May, but a lot of the places we were at were talking about how busy it typically gets in the summer and how crowded the sidewalks are and how difficult it is to book places. So understand that if you're booking during summer and the US holidays of summer and stuff like that, it does get extremely busy during the dry season. But let's talk about money. The Balinese currency is called the rupiah. Now, the rupiah, as of right now, which this video is being filmed in like summer of 2024, the rupiah is $1 to 16,000 rupiah, I believe, which Bali has typically been known for a long time as the destination that's super inexpensive and your money can go pretty far. And that is definitely true, although the distance of your dollar doesn't necessarily go as far if you're choosing to stay in more like Western style accommodations, as is with most destinations. And if you want to understand more about that, what it's like to be an expat in Bali, go ahead and check out my video here on expat life, living in Bali for a temporary time and seeing if Bali is still a great place for being an expat. I do recommend that you take out cash in the beginning because while Bali has come to a place where a lot of places do take card, certain things like temples or entrances to places, or even if you want to buy like some, fruit from a vendor on the side of the street and things like that, it is somewhere where cash will help. I don't think that you necessarily have to worry about cash for all of your transactions, as most locations do have card readers, and the card readers are, it's like the Clover system and all of the modern card, reading things that we have here in the States and in Europe. So that's not really necessarily a concern, although some places will charge you a 3% charge on your card for using the card instead of cash, but it's pretty negligible. Like when in big picture, maybe it's a couple cents, which I think is kind of worth it when it comes to being able to not have to carry around such large amounts of cash. Although Bali is considered relatively safe, to me it's just a little worrisome if you're ever out and you have like hundreds of thousands of dollars on you constantly. It can be pretty dangerous in any rate. But also, I always end up traveling with my Capital One card because it is a great travel card where they do not charge me foreign fees and it's very protected. My bank alerts me if there's any suspicious activity and things like that, and I gain points. So if you are wanting to check out that Capital One card, go ahead and use my link and you'll be able to help me out so we can keep doing videos like this and traveling more. The main cities of Bali typically are like Ubud, Canggu, Seminyak, Uluwatu. Like these are all pretty popular cities, and they also are extremely crowded. I had personal experience staying in Canggu as well as staying in Ubud. Traffic can be considered a huge problem in Bali, Indonesia. For the most part, the roads and everything was not designed for the amount of people that they have, and I'm talking about bikes, as in like motorbikes, as well as cars, as well as, well, there's not as much foot traffic because you can take bikes. Well, that's something to consider when you're making your plans for the day. Understand that although Bali is like geographically not a huge island, it can be pretty difficult to get from point A to point B because a lot of the time that you're spending is just time in traffic getting out from the city center itself out to the other parts of the island. Let's talk about bikes. The most common way to get around Bali is going to be on a motorbike. Now you can rent them yourself for pretty inexpensive prices, or you can take the app which is Grab, which is like basically Uber of Southeast Asia, and you can ride a car. You can like specifically request a car, or you can actually request a bike if it's just you trying to get from point A to point B pretty quickly. And the bikes themselves, the Grab bikes, are super cheap. This is an island that mostly consists of tourism, so I do feel like you have to be ethical when it comes to haggling, and also like the men that work there are going to try and get you for the highest price that you can get. But when it comes to working with the driver, which I think is a great way to go if you're going to be making long day trips in different parts of the island that are pretty far away from like the more populated cell phone service type of areas, I do suggest that you do haggle with the drivers, but it is an important skill to be able to learn. We mostly paid about 450 to 500,000 rupiah, I believe, which sat between like $28 to like $35 a day when it came to booking drivers that were able to take us on like day trips and stuff like that. I would give you guys a recommendation of a driver, but we didn't like stick with one that I felt was like, oh, I have to recommend so-and-so to you. But it's pretty easy to find, honestly, you guys. If you use the app Grab that I've already mentioned, you can kind of just, a lot of them also work on the side as drivers. So it's just a matter of like being communicative and making sure that you're able to get a firm, clear set price from the beginning. Usually they want to be paid in cash, and you go ahead and like go off on the day trip and then you come back. When it comes to booking day trips, I definitely wouldn't advise that you end up going with a bunch of the different tour companies. Like, unless you want something like super easy, super prepackaged, we'll be ending up paying so much more for all of these different sites and things that you can do if you end up going with some of these tour companies, whereas it's so easy to just like book a driver through Grab, or, you know, consult a local taxi driver, whatever, haggle with them a little bit. And, you know, like I said, my friend and I, we paid about $30 a day to have a driver like take us around all different destinations within Bali, whereas like most of the pre-planned tour group things are like 100 plus a day, when entrances to temples and things are not super expensive, and you can, you know, just book your driver and then have your own time in individual places. And if you're even more adventurous, you can book a motorbike, and then you're able to go from place to place, and, you know, it's even cheaper. It's a couple, maybe like $10 or something for like a week of renting a motorbike. So I just really would recommend that you stay away from those like super over planned out, overproduced tours, unless you just want it as easy as possible, no stress. So let's talk about Ubud. Ubud is known as the cultural center of Bali, Indonesia. It is about an hour and a half away from the airport, although that can be kind of longer with traffic. As most things in Bali, you need to note traffic when you're traveling. Ubud is pretty centrally located. It's where you might want to stay if you're going to be interested in exploring a lot of the temples, if you're going to be interested in exploring a lot of the historical kind of location things about Bali, if you're going to be interested in a lot of like the waterfalls and really cool hikes. It is not close to the beach. Rice terraces and monkey forest, like all of that is going to be in Ubud proper. Let's talk about like where you're going to stay. So if you are choosing to visit Ubud, there are plenty of different options if you're going to stay there. There is Airbnb, which is always a solid option when you're traveling somewhere like Bali, Indonesia, because their Airbnbs are relatively inexpensive. So my friend and I booked a villa which had two separate like bedrooms, kind of like put together by a courtyard, and there was like a pool that we had access to where it looked out over into the rice fields and stuff, and we stayed there for about a week, and that was, I believe, around $625, and it's like on the more expensive side. One thing about Bali is that you can choose the type of experience that you want to have, and say somewhere super luxurious, and you'll be able to spend, you know, something close to whatever you'd spend in the United States, or you're able to get something like super bare bones and it'll still be relatively nice, and you can pay about $30 to $40 a night. We also stayed in a hotel that was actually more centrally located. You're gonna want to book next to the monkey sanctuary, monkey forest. That is actually in the super centrally located in Ubud, because that is where all of the restaurants are gonna be. There's some more clubs, there's some more cultural sites, like things to do right there in the center of Ubud. It's super trafficy and congested, but if you are planning on walking a lot, then it's a good place to stay, because you'll be able to have access to all different restaurants and things like that in Ubud right there on the strip, and not have to like take a Grab everywhere you're gonna go. But if you do stay super close to the monkey sanctuary, watch out for monkeys.
He's just looking at him.
No!
That's not gonna work.
He's gonna drink out of my water. He's getting my shit. Where's my wallet's in there?
Oh shit.
My wallet and my cards, bro.
I'm not gonna take your wallet.
Larissa.
He wants food. Look, he's moving on. He's moving on. He just wants food. He just wants food. It's okay.
Oh my God, Larissa.
So next up, let's talk about Canggu / Seminyak. This area was actually traditionally known as like a really popular like surfing area with lots of like good waves for surfing, and now it's a great place where people can learn how to surf, but also are both known as popular destinations for partying in Bali. Now that's not necessarily my speed and something that I'm super interested in, but this is where you'll find a lot of the clubs, a lot of the bars, a lot of the like nightlife, as well as the beach clubs themselves, which Bali is known for all over the world. They're really popularly known for their beach clubs, and lots of places have tried to recreate them themselves. Canggu is also known as a digital nomad hub where lots of people are becoming expats, and they're traveling from different places in the Western world and Europe and everything else to then live for a cheaper like standard of living and stuff like that there in Bali, Indonesia. You also have lots of co-working spaces where they're encouraging digital nomads to come over, as well as almost every single cafe did have Wi-Fi, and they had like different people working at cafes and things like that. So I did make a video on my time spending in Bali as I existed as a digital nomad for about a week or so. And so you can go ahead and check that video out here if you are so interested. Beaches in Canggu and Seminyak kind of were just like there, like they weren't super gorgeous in my opinion, but it is kind of cool to be able to go to the beach clubs and have, you know, any kind of food and pools and music and everything like right there on the water if you're super into that sort of thing. So that is something that Canggu does have and does offer lots of different beach clubs. As far as dressing and different dressing styles while you're in Bali, I definitely know that there's like an aesthetic of people who like want to travel there and it's very Instagrammable and things like that, but I will say try and be pretty respectful when you're going into different temples and things like that. A lot of places will have you either cover up with a shawl and they'll provide shawls, or they will expect you to come with shawls, and there's different rules. Like I don't believe you're allowed to go into most of the temples in Balinese culture when you are on your cycle as a woman. So I think as a tourist, it is important to be well knowledgeable about these things. Canggu and Ubud pretty much, both are destinations where you are going to want to shop. Now for me personally, it also like fits in with my personal style a little bit, as I do like loose flowy clothing, a little more bohemian, but I kind of came without the knowledge that it was a really big shopping destination. I was worried a lot of the clothes weren't going to fit me as like a curvier American woman. A lot of the clothes, like I said, did have stretch and are very bohemian and very colorful and different patterns and pretty inexpensive. So I definitely would recommend keeping some room in your suitcase for shopping when you're in Bali, Indonesia. Bali, Indonesia itself is extremely safe. A lot of people use that as like a solo travel destination or a solo travel like jump off spot and things like that. A lot of women. It's pretty easy to get around. I'll be honest with you guys, I did not feel unsafe or threatened in any destination. Be careful when you are participating in like nighttime clubbing and things like that, but that's something I'd recommend for any destination. And let's talk about my favorite thing, which is food. I will tell you one thing, you are going to be eating quite good in Bali, Indonesia, and you can really do it on any budget. Warungs are actually the name for like restaurants and things like that in Bali. There weren't as many like night markets as I expected, which is something that's like more popular in Thailand, or I mean, I didn't experience them as much, but yeah, so warungs are like really popular, and you can get really good Indonesian food, which is like nasi goreng and things like that. It's like chicken and rice and pretty, you know, pretty delicious. That's gonna be where your dollar is gonna go the furthest, or your rupiah will go the furthest, as like most warangs are pretty inexpensive and they're serving traditional Indonesian fare, and you'll see like nicer warangs and you'll see like more warangs that look like they're just kind of like shacks set up on the side of the road and everything in between. There is every kind of cuisine that you've ever wanted in Bali, Indonesia, and they do it pretty damn good. I had pizza, I had sushi, I had a burger, which was like kind of one of the best burgers I've ever had, which is chaotic to say, I know. You're spoiled for choice as far as food options in Bali, Indonesia. I know different people talk about things like Bali belly, which is like well known as like the sickness, runny stool and things like that people might have when they're first entering into Bali, Indonesia. I personally didn't experience it too bad. I did have a little bit of it in Gili Trawangan, which is like an island off the coast of Indonesia, not even in Bali proper, with like, you know, it's like, okay, that's kind of reasonable. It's a small island and, you know, there's just a lot of different things there. But as far as Bali proper, I did not get sick. I do not have your immune system though, so be careful. And if you notice there's something that usually upsets your stomach, don't eat it. While the food is pretty inexpensive, keep in mind that the portion sizes are technically relatively small compared to America. Now, this is most places that you travel, but I did find that it was important for me when I went to most restaurants, an appetizer as well as a main serving, and sometimes I even had room for like a dessert because the portion size of the main entree is like pretty small, and that's coming from someone who has traveled lots of different destinations. And I know American portion sizes are huge, but Indonesian and Balinese portion sizes are small. Also, if you are vegan, vegetarian, any type of like food modification, things like that, Bali is probably a really great destination for you to be in, because Bali is somewhere that has marketed itself as a really holistic and healthy place to be. There's a lot of yoga retreats and an emphasis on like clean living and wellness and things like that. So that does contribute to the food scene as well. It's probably one of the places where I would find it easiest to eat really healthy, clean, good for you, fresh ingredients that are not going to be super processed and things like that. So there was tons of restaurants that I ended up seeing that did look like they had a lot of like vegan, vegetarian, healthy options that you are able to partake in. So I know a lot of people get worried about the water and ice as well. Water is actually not safe to drink from the tap in Bali, Indonesia, but a lot of hotels and Airbnbs do know this. The Airbnb that we stayed at, I think both of them had some of those big water jugs that we were able to use during our stay, as well as the hotel we stayed at did provide us with like clean, fresh, bottled water. So, you know, I would definitely recommend using those big water jugs if you are provided them. If not, try and get a really big water one time and kind of keep it with you, or use like a reusable bottle, because we're just not trying to have a bunch of the small water bottles that contribute to the plastic pollution issues. And as far as the ice goes, ice used to be something that people had to be worried about when going to restaurants and getting drinks and stuff like that. But actually this is, there's a program throughout Bali, Indonesia now where ice is personally delivered program, and you can look up into it. It's pretty interesting, but it's basically so that tourists don't get sick when they are using the ice from restaurants in their drinks and stuff like that. So I say all that to say ice is actually safe now as well, and you know, just keep mind of that, because that will make your stomach be messed up if you do drink tap water. That is all I have for you guys today about my time in Bali, Indonesia. I hope some of these tips are going to be useful to you in your travels. If you've already been, go ahead and drop some more tips down there in the comments. I have a whole bunch of other videos and a whole bunch of other travel destinations coming up. So thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.